International Student Association for the Special Events Committee. I do want to welcome everyone to our event today, Football 101. Thank you for coming out. Today, we actually have some really great speakers planned to come in and give us all some insight on the Aggie spirit, traditions, and of course, Aggie football. So I do want to make a note that after each presentation, we will have a small Q&A portion, and we definitely encourage anyone who has a question to come forth and ask. Feel free to leave it in the chat or to raise your hand, and then we can unmute you, or ask your question as you may. So after that, we also have a Kahoot game plan and some raffle and prizes as well. But before we get into that, I do want to briefly introduce our president of ISA, Sean Waters.
Thanks, Perwa. My name is Sean. I'm the president of ISA this year, and I'm really happy to see how excited everyone is that they came and showed up for Football 101. Because this is our only fall event, and I'm really proud of the special events team for working as hard as they have to make this a reality. Hopefully we can see you in the spring for iWeek, but we'll have to see. You can always go to our website, which I'll put the link in the chat in just a moment, and see updates on that. But for now, I'll hand it off to our Vice President for Special Events, Dua Ahmed, and I'll let her take it away.
Hi everyone, my name is Dua. I am the Vice President for Special Events this year. The ISA team is super excited to have you guys join us tonight. We would like to thank all the speakers who are going to come here and present for us. We would also like to thank our sponsors, Aggie Land Outfitters, Barnes & Nobles, the Vice President of Students Affairs, and the Athletic Department for sponsoring this event. Moreover, I hope that you guys stay until the end of this event, because we'll be sending out a link to an exit survey, and through that you guys can potentially win free football tickets. So yeah, we hope that you guys enjoy this event, and back to Purva.
Yeah, thank you, Dua. So I want to go ahead and jump right into it and introduce our first speaker, who is a coordinator for international academic programs in the College of Agriculture, Ms. Kerri Vance. She's going to talk a little bit about her knowledge about Aggie football, traditions, and possibly her experience as a former Aggie band member. So, Ms. Vance.
Awesome, thank you. Howdy, everyone. Yes, as Pura said, my name is Kerri, and I am a former student. I was a student here from 2002 to 2006, and also a member of the Fightin' Texas Aggie Band. So I've had a lot of experiences going to games and being involved in the games. You might even be able to see my boots back here in my office. I grew up in Texas A&M. I'm a second generation Aggie, and I have been going to games since I was a kid, and I just love Aggie football. It's so awesome. And to be honest, when I first started going to games, I was mesmerized by the Aggie band. That's the only reason I wanted to go. But by the time I got into high school and into college, I really found a love for the game. And I love to see how the strategies of the game work between offense and defense, and how games play out. And actually, my dad and I have season tickets, and we sit up at the top of the north end zone, because having that kind of bird eye view of seeing how plays play out and seeing different strategies of different plays, I think is really awesome and very, very fun. Another little thing about me is that I used to live in Germany for some time. I lived in Germany for 6 years. And so I got to know a little bit about real football, as for what my German friends always said. And usually when I meet international folks, that's typically what they say when we start getting on the subject of football. But welcome to Aggie Land, where football is here, our real football. As I go through my presentation a little bit, I will make some references to soccer, and kind of how I see some comparisons on different things. But otherwise, I'm going to get started on this. And just to answer this question really quick, I was A battery, class of 06, the question that was in the chat. Okay, so let me go here and share a screen, share, go back here and here. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Everything good? Awesome. Okay, so a little bit of quick history about college football. Um, the game we know today as football here in America kind of evolved out of rugby football. And by the time the rules changed enough to create its own game, we sort of dropped the rugby part of it and it became football as we know it. The first cited game of American football is 1869 between Rutgers University and what is now known as Princeton University. Back then, the game had very few rules. And as you can see in that right picture, it kind of just looked like a mob. So it wasn't as formalized as it is now, as you see. To give credit to the organization that we have now, that is to the father of American football, Walter Camp. He was a football player at Yale and in 1876. And back then in the late 1800s, college football kind of originated out of the Ivy League schools up in the north. So him being a player at Yale sort of makes sense at this time. And after his football career at Yale, he sort of pioneered rule changes in the collegiate football rules committees. And some of his most notable rule changes that we have today are the line of scrimmage, the snap to the quarterback, and also the down system that we have. So from there and throughout the next century, there have been other rules changes and a little bit of evolution to the game that we know today. By the late 1800s, college football spread from Ivy Leagues in the north all across the US, down south, over to the west, to California. Because things were kind of spreading out all the way, different colleges sometimes played with different types of rules and things like this. So what the colleges decided to do at the time was sort of create a governing body of the football rules, which is now called the NCAA. So that was formed in 1906. So now, starting in the early 1900s, we have kind of a governing body that makes the rules that all colleges have to abide by. And so it made the game a little bit more consistent. And then modern college football that you see today, oh, let me go back one. Oh, no, that's right. This is right. Modern college football that you see today, starting again from the early to mid 1900s, because now we have a formal governing body. We start to see a little bit more consistency. At this time, also conferences have started being formed. And I'm going to talk about conferences in a little bit later. But you start to see conferences formed. And so teams start playing each other in their conferences. Television brings college to a national level. College football was more of a regional sport, and conferences were kind of regional conferences. But when television came up, now people were seeing college football on a national level. And then all through this time period, 1900s, you got a growth of postseason, what we call bowl games. And then starting in 2014, we have what we call now a college football playoff system to see who is the best college football team in the US. A little bit about Texas Aggie football. Here you kind of see the evolution of Kyle Field. And for me, working at the College of Ag and Life Sciences, Kyle Field has a special place within our college. Kyle Field was named after Edwin J. Kyle, who was the first dean of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, and he was a horticulture professor. And the land that Kyle Field is on used to be a portion of his research land for horticulture. And because he was so loved football, he decided to donate a portion of that land so that the football players can play games on it. And then from there, you can see what we have now if you've been on campus. The first Aggie football game played was in 1894. By 1919, we started the 12th man tradition. And I hope that the person who talks about traditions will talk more about how the 12th man tradition came about. 1939, we were national champions. So Aggie football has, and you can tell by the stadium, the growth of the stadium is just become such a huge part of this community, and it brings old Aggies back into town. And it's just, if you've already been to a game, it's sad that you've come in 2020 if you're new here, but to those who have been to an Aggie football game in a non-pandemic situation, you can tell like how awesome in the environment that is. Today our head coach is Jimbo Fisher, and the conference that we are a part of is the Southeastern Conference. to talk a little bit about conferences, this is where I sort of compare it to soccer. And because I lived in Germany, I'm going to kind of reference the Bundesliga a little bit. So there are several divisions in college football, and divisions are decided based on the size of school and the number of sports programs that are offered, and how many are offered to women and how many are offered to men. So you don't move up or down in divisions unless the school either increases the amount of sports programs they have or decreases the amount of sports programs they have. It doesn't ever depend on wins. So within Division 1, you have all these different conferences. So we are in the Southeastern Conference, and you can kind of tell by some of these names that based on regionality, that's how these conferences form. So the teams can travel closer to each other, and they're not traveling across country to play games. So the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, Pac-12 is the Pacific Athletic Conference on the Pacific Coast. The ACC is the Atlantic Coast Conference on the Atlantic Coast. The Power Five you see there on the left side, these 5 conferences just have kind of the best teams in there. So these conferences typically are in contention for the title often, and they have great football programs. So, and they're typically bigger schools as well. So this is kind of what conferences. Teams can move conferences. As a matter of fact, in 2012, Texas A&M changed conferences from the Big 12 to the Southeastern Conference. But again, those are more administrative decisions, and nothing is ever based on wins or losses. So you're not moving up or down or anything like that. Like at least in the Bundesliga, that's how that works. So getting into football, we have a football field here. From goal line to goal line, it's 100 yards. From sideline to sideline, it's 53 1/3 yards. All these little marks here are called hash marks, and they mark out each individual yard on the football field. There are 2 end zones, and then a goal post at the end of the end zone. You have midfield and the goal line there. So that's kind of basically what a football field looks like. Basic football rules: there are 11 players on the field for each team. Each team has 3 different groups of players. They've got players that specialize in offense. They have players that specialize in defense. And then they also have players that specialize in special teams, which are basically our kicking plays, punting, field goals, kickoffs, things like that. And you'll have players that really are going to only specialize in one part. Special teams is usually kind of a mix of both. The game is 60 minutes, 4 quarters, 15 minutes each. There's a 20-minute halftime. There's also a play clock that's 40 or 25 seconds that you have to start a play. But yes, there are timeouts. There are clock stops and TV timeouts that make the game much longer than 60 minutes, as opposed to what my German friends say with soccer, that, you know, it's 90 minutes and that's it. Although they do add extra minutes at the end of those. So games are typically more like 3.5 hours. I would tell you most of that is because of TV. So the objective of football: advance to the opponent's end zone to score. For the first play of each half, so the first play of the first quarter and the first play of the third quarter starts off with a kickoff. And also after each score, the possession begins with the kickoff. The offense has 4 downs to advance the ball 10 yards. And they can advance the ball in 2 ways. They can pass it, or they can rush, which is basically run. This picture here is what you would see on TV, and TV has its perks, I can tell you that. So on TV, they add these lines here. The black line, the line that the ball starts on, is called a line of scrimmage that we talked about. This was the rule implemented by Walter Camp. And then the yellow line you often see, that's what's called the line to gain. So that's the 10 yards that they need to advance to in order to get a new set of 4 downs. This particular play is 3rd and 8. So it's 3rd down, and they have 8 yards to go to get to the line of gain. So however they can do it, that's how they go. Unfortunately, you can't see these lines in a live game, so you just sort of have to keep your eye here on this guy, who that's the guy that indicates where the first down marker is or where the line to gain is. On 4th down, If you're not there yet, then there's several options. You can punt the ball, and that's if you've got a long way to go. It's better just to punt the ball to give an unfavorable field advantage to the other team. If you're within range of your place kicker, your field goal kicker, if you're within range of him being able to kick the ball, you can go for a field goal. Or if you're 4th and 1, for example, and in the right kind of circumstance or situation, you've got to go for it, then you can go for it on the 4th down and hope you get it. But if you don't, then it's a turnover on downs. So scoring. There's basically 3 ways to score. A touchdown gives you 6 points. After a touchdown, there's an option to either kick an extra point or go for a 2-point conversion. 2-point conversion is rarer during the game, during an actual regulation game. It becomes more popular in overtime, especially after the 3rd or 4th overtime. Then you have to go for 2-point conversions. In the 2-point conversion, the ball starts on the 2-yard line, and you kind of essentially have to make another touchdown. You can get a field goal, which is 3 points. So this is if you're, again, it's typically for like 4th down and in range of kicking a field goal. And then a safety is 2 points. A safety is when the offense is tackled in their own end zone, or the ball goes into their own end zone and out. That is also considered a safety. Or if an offensive foul is committed in their own end zone, that is also considered safety and gives the other team 2 points. And then we have turnovers and penalties. So you have kind of the basic rule of the game. And turnovers is when the ball changes possession. So a ball can change possession if there's a fumble. So the offensive player drops the ball before they're tackled and the other team gets it. So it turns the ball over. Interception is when the defense catches a pass, like the GIF you see there. And a turnover on downs, again, is when you do not get the 1st down after 4 tries. So then the ball just turns over right where it is. Along with those basic rules, there's a lot of things you can't do. And you see a short list, actually, of the most popular penalties that you might hear from the referee. So one's a false start. This is when the offensive line moves before the ball is snapped. Offsides is when the defense moves before the ball is snapped. Delay a game is when the offense does not snap the ball in time for the play clock. So as I mentioned before, the play clock is 40 seconds or 25 seconds. If they don't get the play going within the 40 or 25 seconds, it's delay of game. Pass interference. This can be offensive or defensive. You're normally going to hear it as a defensive pass interference. And the point is here is that you have to let the receiver have a fair chance at catching the ball. And so you can't interfere with that fair chance. Holding, you can't grab onto jerseys and hold players back from making plays. Face mask, you can't grab the face mask. It's a safety reason. Targeting is when it's helmet to helmet contact, and especially with the crown of the head. And then unsportsmanlike conduct you'll hear. And this is when fighting occurs, maybe language, especially language directed at referees, or maybe excessive celebration after a touchdown. And even coaches can be flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct. So these things don't do. All of these penalties carry some sort of yardage penalty, anywhere from 5 to 15 yards. And a little bit of Aggie football extra. A couple of things I just wanted to point out. If you wanted to kind of see a little bit more of the inside of Aggie football and what they do, the 12th Man production puts together this really cool video series, and you can find it on YouTube on the A&M Athletics YouTube page. And the series is called The Pulse. And basically every football season, they sort of recap the week and they go behind the scenes with players, with coaches, and just kind of show you different aspects of daily life of a student athlete and college football player. But then they also recap the game. So it's really kind of a cool insider view of Aggie football. The other thing is I recommend going to YouTube, especially those of you where this is your first year to watch football live. you are missing the greatest thing about Aggie football, and that is the Fightin' Texas Aggie Band. They usually play at halftime, but due to the pandemic and SEC regulations, they're not allowed to perform live. So they do recordings of the halftime show and they play it on the Jumbotron, but there is nothing like this Aggie Band live. So I recommend, if you want to see some really kind of cool, different videos of the Aggie Band, go on YouTube, check those out. And then also on the A&M website, Game Day Traditions. So that's the website there for different game day traditions that we have. And those include things like, am I still here? Yeah. So those include things like Maroon Out. It includes the Aggie Band, things like Reveille and some other things that are really cool that happen during game day. So I recommend going and checking that out. Any questions? I thought I had a questions page. Oh, there it is. Any questions?
If anyone has a question, you can unmute and ask it, or you can even leave it in the chat. So we do have a question. May I ask how to decide national champions?
All right, yes. So national champions. So I'm not going to go through the history of it. Today, today there is the Associated Press and the coaches every week come out with polls, and the polls rank the football teams based on their play and things like this. Right now, Texas A&M is ranked number 5, which is amazing. In a normal season, usually around the beginning of November, there is now, because of the college football playoff, there's now a college football playoff committee. And it's a committee of 13 members that get together, and they're people, they get together in a room, and then they decide a ranking. Sometimes it's very similar to coaches and AP poll, and sometimes it can be a little bit different. And basically they look at different aspects of each football team and rank those football teams. By the end of the football season, after conference championships, they will come out with a final ranking. And the top 4 teams will go into a bracket style playoff. So number 1 and number 4 will play each other, and number 2 and number 3 will play each other. And then the winners of those 2 games will play each other in a national championship. So that's how we get a national championship these days.
There was a question.
It is actually one of our, I'm sorry, I'm replying to
No, go
comments
ahead,
here.
I'm so sorry.
It is actually one of our best seasons. And I mean, I don't ever want to jinx it, because usually November, that's when A&M starts going downhill, but I'm thinking it's 2020. Anything is happening, so maybe something positive will happen to us. Make the presentation available. I will certainly pass it along to ISA, to Dua, and she's welcome to make that available. Talk more about conferences. Okay, in my humble opinion, will we make it to the top 3 or top 4? Man, I hate speculating, but from what I've been hearing from the news, you know, and I say news is like ESPN, which is sports news, and those commentators, if we can win the rest of our games, then, and then, you know, I'm have fingers crossed that maybe some of the top 4 teams, like maybe Ohio State might lose, or maybe Notre Dame might lose, who knows? But if one of those top 4 teams loses and we can win the rest of our games, and our only loss is to Alabama, which, like, we can never beat Alabama. Nobody can beat Alabama, let's just be honest, very rarely. Then that makes a really strong case to the playoff committee that maybe we can be in the top 4 to get in there. Let me see. There was a question about conferences. Savannah, if you can, or sorry, Saravanan, if you can tell me more specifically about what you want to know about conferences, I'm happy to answer that. AP poll is disrespecting us this year, ranking Florida ahead of us after we beat them. Yeah, I hear you. I'm feeling that. Let's see, how many players approximately could become professional players? That's a good question. College football players have to be 3 years out of high school to be eligible for the NBA draft. So the student athletes, they come here to A&M and they have to play at least 3 years, and then they can go in the draft. Now, I say play, there's also a term called a red shirt. So they can come in their freshman year, they can say, I want to sit out this year and then I'll play. And that allows them to keep 4 years of eligibility. So their freshman year, they might say, I just want to red shirt it, which means I'm not going to play this year, but I'll start my eligibility my sophomore year. In that case, sometimes they might play, they have a red shirt freshman year and play 2 years. That still makes them eligible for the the NFL draft after their 3rd year at college. You know, I would say on any given NFL draft year, A&M probably, we probably have on a good year about 10 players that get drafted into the NFL. We currently have quite a few great NFL players right now. Von Miller, who plays for the Denver Broncos, he was Super Bowl 50 MVP, so he's pretty awesome. Myles Garrett plays for the Cleveland Browns. He was our first #1 overall draft pick. He was the first player the NFL chose to draft a few years ago, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, we've got all kinds of players. The Ryan Tannehill is a quarterback. Christian Kirk's out there. Josh Reynolds is out there. Mike Evans, yes, he's out there. Yeah, we've got a lot of great football players out there. So they're there, but not everybody goes to the NFL, which what I think is what's cool about collegiate sports. And if I can compare this, for example, to like soccer in Europe, is that at least here with collegiate sports, the students get also a degree. And so after that, they can go into a normal job. Sometimes I talk to my German friends and they talk about how soccer players are just kind of dumb because they grow up in the sport and there's not the education with it, and there's not something that they can fall back on after their playing career ends. So I think that's what's kind of cool about American sports, is a lot of it is through the education system. And then they can go professional, or if they get that education, they can just fall into normal life like everybody else. So
awesome.
Yeah.
We are short on time right now, so we do have to wrap it up here. But I do want to thank you so much, Ms. Vance. This was such a helpful presentation. I myself learned a lot from it. And I do want to note that, of course, we'll be more than willing to pass on the presentation, but we are also recording this entire event and we'll also be posting it. But again,
Awesome.
thank you so much for this. I do want to now move on to the Traditions Council, and we do have a member from them that I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves to go over more into our Aggie traditions and how it is that we have our Aggie spirit. So
I'll get this presentation up. Oh, I think I'm on another slide. Sorry, I was looking through it. There we go. Howdy. My name is McKenna Fono. I am a senior political science major from Katy, Texas. And more importantly, I'm a loud, proud member of the Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2021. Hey, whoop! I'll let the rest introduce and then I'll start the presentation. We got 2 other members with us.
Howdy, y'all.
My name is James Daly, and I'm a junior chemical engineering major from San Antonio, Texas. But more importantly, I am the loudest and the proudest member of the Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2022. AAA, woo!
And howdy, my name is Emily Gannon. I'm an international studies and Russian double major from Oakton, Virginia. But most importantly, I'm the loudest and proudest member of the Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2021. Hey, whoop!
All right. So we are the Traditions Council. So our job on campus is that we preserve and promote the traditions of Texas A&M. We were founded in 1975, the good old 70s. So we're talking to you about the Agricultural and Mechanical College of Texas and our traditions. So A&M opened on October 2nd, 1876, and it was the first public institution for Texas in higher learning. It was renamed Texas A&M in August 23rd, 1963, and also that was the same year that President James Earl Rudder allowed women to attend, because originally it had been an all-men military institution. So you can imagine how excited all of those guys were when they heard women were coming. The 60s were great to A&M. In 1965, the Corps of Cadets became voluntary. It used to be required because it was a military college, but of course now it is not. You can choose to not be in the Corps if you would like to not be. But that is about A&M.
Okay, so howdy. Howdy is the official greeting of Texas A&M, and it's what makes us the friendliest campus in the country. And the origins of howdy are unknown. Nobody ever really knows like when it started getting used or when it became an A&M thing, but it is something we all do now. It's just a way to greet other people on campus, and it's how you introduce yourself to other Aggies. And then Gig'em started at midnight yell before a TCU game in 1930. When P.L. Pinky Downs said, "What are we going to do to those horned frogs?" Gig'em, Aggies, because that's what you do with a frog when you are hunting them. You put your like thumb up, and I don't know exactly how it works. Okay, well, I guess a gig is a spear with prongs on the bottom, held in one hand with the thumb up, and the hand moves in a downwards motion to replicate spearing the frog. And then we say Gig'em to motivate each other and to show spirit.
So as someone mentioned earlier, we do talk a little bit about the 12th man and where that originated from. This started in the Dixie Classic, which was a football game. It was like by the conferences. They looked a little different back in like 1920s, but it was like this big ball game that the like top schools played at. And so this was in 1922. The Aggies were, quote, completely exhausted, both physically and mentally. And by halftime, every player but the 11 on the field were injured, which means if one more got injured on the field, they wouldn't have anyone to substitute in. And previous to this game, there was a student by the name of E. King Gill who played football but wasn't the best. Basketball was supposedly his better sport. And so he was kind of playing that more often than he was playing football. But he did know how to play. And Coach Dana Bible remembered that E. King Gill was in the press box watching the game. So E. King Gill came down from the press box, suited up, and stood on the sidelines ready to play and sub in for a player should they ever be needed. The Aggies ended up winning 22-14. And although E. King Gill didn't go into the football game and actually play on the field, the idea that he was there and ready to help an Aggie and the Aggie football team if they needed it is kind of where the name of the 12th man came from. So as there's 11 football players on the field, he was the 12th one on the sidelines. And for us, that's what the significance of being the 12th man is. It's the idea and the notion that you're there for another Aggie whenever they need you to be, even if it's just silent on the sidelines.
All right, midnight yell practice. So this is something that is distinctly for football. So it started 1931. Originally before then, since 1913, a lot of the students, the cadets at the time, would practice yells because I don't know if y'all know this, but it takes a lot of scientific practice to get these yells just as perfect as we want them. So we will practice them for fun. And so in 1931, they decided to do a big yell practice because it was right before the big TU game, which is short for Texas University or University of Texas. So they wanted to drum up a lot of enthusiasm. So they were going to get up in front of YMCA building and they were going to make a big show of it. And it was said that the Aggie band and everybody came and a good time was had by all. And it was so fun and amazing that it became a tradition. Though, of course, we do not do it in front of the YMCA anymore. We do it in the amazing Kyle Field. And so what happens when you go to Midnight Yell is it is at midnight. And it's the midnight before the first game on Friday. That's a home game. We only do it on Kyle Field for a home game. When it's away, normally on Thursday, there will be like kind of a mini yell at the King Gill statue. And then there will be one kind of smaller one held in that city where the game is going to be when it's away. But when it's at home, we do it in Kyle Field. And so they practice yells. So they'll go over a lot of the yells that you'll be yelling at the football games. Because when you're at the football games, they'll do a lot of signals and stuff. And you will do certain yells depending on what's going on in the game, or if there's a moment to kind of drum up a lot of cheering for the game. And so they'll do a lot of yell practices, the war hymn, the spirit of Aggie land. And then there's 2 fables told. So a fable is kind of a funny story that they use to kind of make fun of the other team. And it's kind of like in a nice way. It's not very vulgar or rude. It's kind of lighthearted, funny jokes that are told. A junior yell leader tells one and a senior yell leader tells the other. And then as the ceremony ends, the lights go out and we do this thing called mug down. So if you bring a date to midnight yell, you would kiss your date when the lights go off, and that's called a mug down. And then if you're not with a date, you can take a lighter out, or some people do their like phone light to find someone to kiss. Please do not be afraid when you're at midnight yell that some random person is going to kiss you when it's mug down. When I was a freshman, I was terrified of that because my fish camp leaders told me that that was going to happen or something. I think they were messing with me, but no one is going to just kiss you. Don't worry about that. And that's basically the whole ceremony. And if you would like to watch Midnight Yell, you can attend by reserving a ticket, which they do through their social media. But also it is available as a live stream currently. So you can go on YouTube and you can watch Midnight Yell at midnight before the home games. And that is Midnight Yell. Thanks and gig 'em.
Okay, so bonfire. Bonfire is a big tradition for Texas A&M. The first one was in 1907 after a victory against Tulane. It wasn't very big, just kind of happened out of like the time and everyone was just happy, so they did it. And then the first official one was in 1909, and this was at Simpson Drill Field in the middle of campus. And it would later move towards the golf course now where the Bonfire Memorial is today. And then the tallest bonfire was in 1969 at 109 feet tall. So what bonfire was a big stack of logs that was made throughout the fall semester. And then on the Friday before the TU game, it would be lit on fire, and all Aggies from across the country and everybody who was there would go in to watch it burn and get excited for the Thanksgiving game. So it was just a very, very big tradition and something that really made A&M unique and nobody else in the country was doing. And then so the people who made bonfire, there was different units of people. Some were in like different dorms, like sets of dorm students did it. And then Corps Cadets outfits also had their own groups that helped put together bonfire. And then throughout its history, there was 2 years where it did not burn. One of those was in 1963 when JFK was assassinated, and the other was in 1999 when it unfortunately collapsed, which we'll talk about in a second.
So the collapse is kind of what we have bonfire remembrance ceremony for, and this actually happened this past Tuesday as it was November 18th. But after the collapse happened on November 18th at 2:42, 12 Aggies died, and there were others as sustained injuries during the collapse. It happened before the actual burn night. It was while they were stacking the logs in preparation for the night of which we burn. So our actual remembrance ceremony takes place every year on that date at 2:42 a.m. at the Bonfire Memorial, which is on campus, kind of near where the admin building is, right across from that. And that itself, that location itself, is exactly where the bonfire was the night that it collapsed. So it was that close to campus. And now, as we kind of said earlier, bonfire burning, the actual bonfire, is not a university sanctioned event. It's more of a student-led event. But back then it was through the university, and that's why it was kind of like super close to campus. So there's quite a few parts to Bonfire Memorial that make it super unique. And the first is a Traditions Plaza, which is this wall that leads up, that like stands on the ground before you get to the circle, that has the poem, The Last Corps Trip, engraved on it. Like the university used to be super heavily involved with the Corps started the university. So that's why a lot of our traditions revolve around the Corps of Cadets. And the Corps trip was a trip that was taken by cadets during the year. They would go and march in a different city before a football game. So that story fable was kind of engraved on this, on the stone in the Traditions Plaza. After the Traditions Plaza, you start your walk towards the circle, towards the spirit ring. And this is called the History Walk. Along the walk on the right side of it, there are 89 stones, each representing the year that a bonfire was burned. And there are gaps in the actual pavement themselves for the years that it didn't burn. One of which was in 1963 when the death of JFK happened, and we decided not to burn in his memory. And then after he gets to the end of History Walk, which actually starts big and gets smaller as it gets closer to the spirit ring to kind of push people together and bring them closer as a unit. You get to the spirit ring itself. And on the flat side of the spirit ring, like the really short stones that kind of make the circle as in the photo, those are 27 stones, which represent a student that was injured in the collapse. And then the taller stones that are kind of like standing rectangles are portals. And there's 12 of them, each representing the student that was killed in the collapse. On the inside, kind of where that bronze is, there's a picture of the student and some things engraved on it that are a little bit about what made them them, such as a fish camp application or a poem they wrote, or just like things about them, quotes that other people wrote about them. Those are all engraved on the inside of the portals. And each of the portals faces the direction of that student's hometown. So that's kind of what Bonfire Remembrance is. During the actual evening event, we'll have the family members come, and the whole student body comes and stands outside the spirit ring. And a few of the Yell leaders lead the ceremony as well. And there's a singing of Amazing Grace. A few kind words are spoken, and the whole ceremony itself lasts about 8 minutes. But it's the idea of being there and kind of remembering those students doing what they loved, you know, when the tragedy happened, that makes it such a unique tradition of ours.
All right, Silver Taps is a memorial service, basically, that is held for any student who is current who passes away during the year. And so we do it the first Tuesday of any month following a student's death. During the day, the flags are lowered to half staff, and the names are posted at the bottom of the flagpole and on Silver Taps Memorial. At 10:15 p.m., the lights all go out around campus, and the student body begins to gather in Academic Plaza. The Albright Bell Tower will chime hymns, which starts with How Great Thou Art and ends in Amazing Grace. The families are then guided in to the center of the plaza in front of the statue. And then the Ross volunteers, they do a slow march in once it hits 10:30, and they perform a 3-volley salute. And then after the 3-volley salute is done, the buglers, which are on the top of the academic building, as seen in this photo. You can't see them though, they're kind of hidden on there for a reason. And they play a special rendition of Silver Taps, which is kind of A&M's version of the military taps, but it's not exactly written down, it's passed down by each bugler. And it's played to the north, the south, and the west, but not the east, because the sun will never rise on that Aggie again. And then after taps is played, there's kind of a moment of silence as the bell tower chimes 21 times. And then the Ross volunteers slowly march out. And once they are gone, everyone kind of slowly disperses, and that's the end of the ceremony. And it's a very sweet way that we as Aggies remind ourselves that we are an Aggie family, and we are always here for every other Aggie, even when they pass away. And we are there for their families and friends as well. And it's a very uniting event.
So Muster is an event that's held every year on April 21st, and it's a day that helps us celebrate being an Aggie, and it represents the Aggie spirit that spans across generations. It began with San Jacinto Day, which was a holiday to celebrate the Texan defeat of the Mexican Army and Texas independence at the Battle of San Jacinto. And then, so the first one it was ever celebrated as just a field day was on April 21st in 1899. And then over time, it evolved to become remembrance of people who passed away during the world wars. And then once that happened, it became fully just honoring Aggies who had died within the past year. And so now there's over 300 muster ceremonies held worldwide each year. All across the world, there's people, if they say if you're within 50 miles of another Aggie, you should meet up and muster on April 21st and remember the lives of those who were lost. And then also on muster, the 50-year reunion class returns to campus and helps talk to current students and talk to them about what life was like at A&M back when they were in school. And then at the actual ceremony, they have the roll call, they have the muster ceremony, and then they have the roll call for any absent, where they read the names of any Aggies who had passed in the past year, and everybody responds with here to let them know that they're still in the Aggie spirit, even if they're no longer with us today.
Our next tradition is definitely more visible, and it's Reveille, our mascot. So Reveille is a dog, like the picture shows, that lives with the Corps of Cadets. You might see her during a march-in if you attend one of those, or if you happen to be near the quad where the Corps of Cadets resides. But she's our mascot. And there's kind of a story that goes along with what Reveille is and where she came about. Reveille, the first one, was found in 1931 when cadets were coming back from their trip on a trip to Navastota, which is a nearby city to us where we are now. They found a dog on the side of the road and they decided to take her back to the dorms. But in order to keep her quiet, they hid her in their room. And then in the morning when Reveille, which is the call, like a bugle call to wake up cadets, was sounded, the dog started barking, hence where she got her name, Reveille. She was allowed to stay with the cadets as punishment, but it wasn't really punishment because, I mean, who wouldn't want to have a dog in their dorm? And she roamed the quad, she roamed campus and did kind of as she pleased until she passed away. And between Reveille 1 and 2, there were other unofficial mascots, which included Ranger, Spot, and Tripod, which was a one-legged dog. So there were other animals on campus, but none that really stuck around quite as much as Reveille did. And the first Reveille didn't look so much like a polished collie like our current one does, but it was a dog of similar stature. So it wasn't until 1960, again, 60s being great years for Aggies, where the mascot corporal was assigned for Reveille. And this is always a sophomore cadet from the company E2 in the Corps of Cadets. It's always basically a sophomore who carries Reveille around on a leash. He is like the only one that's allowed to touch her, when he's like having her on the leash, and he usually runs with her on the football field during the football season. And their outfit, E2, or the company E2, is in charge of taking care of Reveille. She has her own credit card, she has her own space to sleep, and it's said that if Reveille jumps on your bed, you better find somewhere else to sleep that night because she takes priority. So some of that stuff is just kind of funny about her. And it's also known that she's the highest ranking member of the Corps of Cadets. She has 5 diamonds. You can kind of see them on the picture. And the Corps commander, the head cadet of the entire Corps, only has 4. So that in itself is kind of interesting. And every couple of years we get a new Reveille. She's retired and goes and lives with someone else. But that's a little bit about Reveille.
She's the softest dog I've ever petted. It's amazing. All right, so I'm going to talk to you all about the Aggie ring. So the first Aggie ring, or designated first Aggie ring, was in 1894. It looked a little bit different than what it is now. I think it was more kind of squarish, and now it's kind of more like this beautiful thing. In 1933, the committee created to designate the criteria for receiving an Aggie ring, which of course is 90 credit hours. It used to be 95, but now it's 90, 45 of which come from Texas A&M. So the ring design, I do know some of the symbolism. I wish I could show you it more clear, but I can't. You can't see it very well, but I'll do my best. So there is a shield, which represents our protecting of our reputation and integrity. There are 13 stripes because we are patriotic. There are 5 stars on the shield, which represent stages of being an Aggie. It is mind, body, spirit, emotion, and integrity. There's also the eagle, which represents our aspiring for ambition, going above and beyond, because eagles fly. There's also the star of Texas, because we are in Texas and we love Texas. And then there's a reef, which is oak leaves and olive leaves, which represent both peace and strength, because you need both. And then there is the guns and cannon, because we fought for Texas independence. So that shows our patriotism again for Texas. And of course, the flag of Texas and America, to show that we have dual allegiance to America and Texas. And there is your class year, which is on your ring. And so currently it faces me because I have not graduated yet. But when I graduate, I will turn my ring out to show that I'm ready for the world, because my class year is now out. So that's kind of some cool stuff about the Aggie ring and all of its symbolism and representation. And I'm sure you'll hear a lot about it because it's a very big deal when you get it and you're able to kind of show your Aggie pride. And there's always the fun stories of people recognizing you with your Aggie ring. And I've heard stories of getting hotel upgrades and stuff because someone saw that you were an Aggie, or even jobs sometimes. The last change was in 1963 when it was course changed to Texas A&M University. And I already talked about the turning the Aggie ring, but that is the Aggie ring. All right, so that is the end of the presentation, but of course, we can take questions and talk a little bit more about football traditions and such if y'all have any. I haven't.
We're unfortunately really behind on time, so I don't think we're gonna have time for questions, but I do think this was such a great presentation and you guys are so thorough. So I do want to thank the Traditions Council for such a great presentation.
Of course, we love doing it. We love talking about our fun traditions.
I'll drive and then we'll record and put the cans if you have the mic. Okay.
Great. And so our next presentation is going to be from our Yell leaders, which they're going to give us an overview about what it is that they do and how they bring that famous energy and spirit that they have to Texas A&M and A&M games. So I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves at this time.
Oh, I need to stop sharing my screen. I'm sorry.
You don't see us?
I cannot.
Okay, give us 1 second. I think our camera's broke.
No worries.
All right, can you see us now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, cool. Well, howdy.
Howdy.
My name is Keller Cox. I'm a senior construction science major from Houston, Texas, a member of the Corps of Cadets in Squadron 17, but more importantly, I'm a proud member of the Fighting Texas Ag class of 2021. Hey! Woo! We're the Fighting Texas Ag Yell leaders, and we don't want to take too much of y'all's time today, but we're very excited to be here tonight and teach you some of the traditions of the university as well as the tradition of the Yell leaders. So what's going to happen tonight is we're going to give you a little bit of history of who we are, then we're going to teach you how to do a yell, and at the very end, we're going to have ourselves a Fighting Texas Ag yell practice. Well, now I'm going to pass it over to one of our junior yell leaders, Mason Graham, to teach you about our history. Thanks, and Giga.
Howdy. Like Keller said, my name is Mason Graham, and I'm a junior business finance major from Dallas, Texas, a member of the Corps Cadets in Company L1, but more importantly, I'm a proud member of the Fighting Texas Ag class of 2022. Hey, woo! We're the Fighting Texas Ag Yell leaders, and we got started back in 1907 when Texas A&M was an all-male military school. Now, I'm sure y'all are a little bit confused about what we just did, so let me explain. Here at Texas A&M, when we disagree with something, we never boo, because we're far too classy for that. Instead, we hiss and call it a horse's lap. So when I say that Texas A&M was all male, I mean that we didn't have any of the fine, young, beautiful looking ladies walking around campus like we do today. Woo! So the way that we would get our dates back in the day is we would get them from Texas Women's College in Denton, Texas. They would come in on the train and all the cadets would rush over to the train station and line up in rank order. Seniors, juniors, sophomores, and of course, freshmen are always in the back. Now, if you were a junior or senior, you pretty much always got a date. And you had to be a pretty good looking sophomore, kind of like my buddy Memo over here. But if you were a freshman, you might as well just grab your buddy's hand and walk back to the dorms because you were not going to get a date. Now, back in 1907, our football team was pretty good. In fact, it had been nearly 3 straight years since we had lost a home football game. And as crazy as it sounds, the dates of those juniors and seniors were getting tired of coming to College Station for another predictable Aggie win. The juniors and seniors couldn't have that. So they enlisted the help of 5 freshmen to run out onto Kyle Field and provide a little entertainment. On their way down to the field, those 5 freshmen put on the goofiest looking things they could find. 5 white janitor's uniforms. Well, that day, those freshmen ran out on Kyle Field, whooping, hollering, and some even say that the first yell was led that day. And it went over well. In fact, it went over a little too well, because the dates of those juniors and seniors started trying to go down to the field to meet those 5 freshmen. Because of this, the position was quickly changed to 3 seniors and 2 juniors, which it still is today. Since then, the position and role of a yell leader has changed quite a bit. Today, it's a student body elected position that serves to promote and perpetuate Aggie athletics, spirit, and tradition. And we do this by attending all home and away football games, men's and women's basketball games, women's soccer, volleyball, new student conferences, Aggie coaches nights, fish camps, transfer camps, and our personal favorite, Aggie moms clubs, and anything else that the university deems necessary. It's a very busy job, but we love the opportunity to give back to the school that we love so much. That's the truth of the yell leaders and how we got started. Thanks, and gig 'em.
Howdy, my name is Memo Salinas. I'm a junior agriculture business major from Laredo, Texas, a member of the Corps of Cadets in Squadron 17, but more importantly, I'm a proud member of the Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2022. Hey, whoop! Now, before I get started, real quick, who here has done a yell before? Well, if you haven't, don't worry, because it's real easy. There's only 4 basic parts. The first part to a yell is called the pass back. And all the pass back is a way for us to let everybody know exactly what yell we're about to do. For example, the pass back for the yell gig 'em looks just like this. And all you would have to do is the exact same hand motion we're doing and yell, pass it back, Ags. That way everybody around you knows exactly what yell we're about to do. Now, the second part to a yell is called the hump it. I know what you're thinking. Sounds kind of weird, but I promise you it's not that weird. All the hump it is the Aggie engineered way for us to best project our voices while doing a yell. My buddy Mason's going to show you what the hump it looks like.
The hump it looks just like this.
Pretty simple. Now, the third part to a yell is the yell itself. And all you would have to do is yell in accordance with the funny and goofy hand motions that we're going to show you here in a second. Now, fourth and finally is called the Wildcat. Now, the Wildcat serves 2 purposes here at Texas A&M. One, to indicate that the yell itself is over, but second, and more importantly, it gives each Aggie the opportunity to show off a little class pride. So that brings us to the freshman Wildcat. Now, our freshmen are new here on campus, and they're real stressed out. They're wondering, what time is my next class? Where is my next class? If they're anything like us, am I even going to go to class? And then you got those real, those deep thinkers, they're struggling with life's hardest questions like, what time is midnight yell? So we try to keep it real simple for them. My buddy Mason's going to show you what the freshman Wildcat looks like.
Freshman Wildcat looks just like this. So
that brings us to the sophomore Wildcat. Our sophomores have been here for 2 semesters, and they think they got it all figured out. They're hot shots, so we try to make it a little harder for them. So what you're going to do is you're going to form 2 pistols, 1 in each hand. You're going to A 5 times down at the ground. My buddy Weston's going to show you what the sophomore Wildcat looks like.
This is sophomore Wildcat.
Hey. Now that brings us to the junior Wildcat. Now, junior year here at Texas A&M is a special time because it's an Aggie's first opportunity to whoop. So what you're going to do is you're going to form those same 2 pistols, but this time you're going to cover your left with your right, where the Aggie ring will hopefully be one day. You're going to whoop 3 times down at the ground and then whoop, just like this. Hey, whoop. Now, fourth and finally is the senior Wildcat. Now, our seniors have been here for quite some time, so we try and keep it real simple for them. What you're going to do is you're going to form the same 2 pistols, but this time you're going to interdigitate your fingers. That's right, I said interdigitate, because we're a lot smarter than we look up here. You're going to A one time down at the ground, then whoop over your head. My buddy Kelly's going to show you what the senior Wildcat looks like.
The senior Wildcat looks just like this. A, whoop.
Now that you know the 4 parts of the yell, I'm going to teach you the yell giggle. This is the pass back. Now here's the yell. 1, 2, 3. Hey! Gig 'em, Aggies. Hey! Whoop! That's the yell gig 'em. Thanks, and gig 'em.
Now, howdy. So real quick, as we're teaching you these yells, we're going to have ourselves a yell practice in just a second. So make sure you're paying attention to what each person is doing. So next, Jacob is going to come up and teach you the yell Aggies. And so all you have to do right now is look along and watch. And then in just a minute, we'll actually have ourselves a yell practice. So make sure you're paying really close attention.
All right, well, howdy. My name is Jacob Huffman. I'm a senior sports conditioning major from Weatherford, Texas, a member of the Corps of Cadets in Company H1, But more importantly, I'm a proud member of the Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2021. Hey, whoop! The next yell I'm going to teach y'all is the yell Aggie. So the pass back looks just like this. You're going to make an A right over your head. So here's the pass back. Now here's the yell. 1, 2, 3. A-G-G-I-E-S. A-G-G-I-E-S. Hey! Fight 'em, Aggies. Hey! Woo! That's the yell Aggies. Thanks and gig 'em.
Howdy. My name is Weston Porter. I'm a senior industrial distribution major from Dallas, Texas. Member of the Corps of Cadets in Company E1. But more importantly, I'm a proud member of the Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2021.
Hey! Whoop!
Well, up next, I'm going to teach you all to yell Farmers Fight. Pass back to the yell Farmers Fight looks just like this. You're going to form 2 fists and rotate your arms twice forward and twice back. That's the pass back. This is the yell.
1, 2, 3. Farmers fight. Farmers fight. 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 Farmers fight. Hey, woo!
That's the yell Farmers Fight. Thanks and gig 'em.
All right, howdy. Well, the very last yell that we're going to teach you is one of Aggieland's personal favorites, affectionately known as Beat the Hell. So the pass back for the yell Beat the Hell looks just like this. Well, that's a pass back, and here's the yell. Up at eggs. 1, 2, 3.
Beat the hell out of whoever we're playing that week. Hey, woo!
All right, well, now that y'all know all the yells, here's how this is going to work. We're going to have ourselves a Fighting Texas Aggie yell practice. And I know all of you may be sitting down, but we're going to ask you to go ahead and stand on up. If you're in a place where you can turn on your cameras, we want to see y'all yelling along with us. And we're going to have ourselves a yell practice real quick. So we're going to turn on the gallery view so we can see y'all yelling along with us. All right. All right, can we get thumbs up? Is everyone ready? Okay, there we go. Come on. All right, pass it back, Eggs.
Pass it back, Eggs.
So you guys copy the hand motion we're doing just like that, yep. Okay, hump it, Eggs.
Hump it, Eggs.
So for this part of the yell, everyone just get right here in the hump position. Y'all leave all the goofy hand motions to us. There we go.
1, 2, 3. Hey! Gig 'em, Aggies. Hey! Woo!
All right, there we go. Pass it back, Eggs.
Pass it back, Eggs.
Hump it, Eggs.
Hump it, Eggs.
1,
2, 3. A-G-G-I-E-S. A-G-G-I-E-S. Hey! Fight 'em, Aggies. Hey! Woo!
All right, pass it back, Eggs.
Pass it back, Eggs.
Hump it, Eggs.
Hump it, Eggs.
1,
2, 3. Farmers fight. Farmers fight. 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 Farmers fight. Hey, whoop!
Well, no yell practice would be complete if we didn't beat the hell out of something. And so since next week our Ags are taking on the LSU Tigers, we're going to beat the hell out of LSU. Pass it back, Eggs.
Pass it back, Eggs.
Hump it, Eggs.
Hump it, Eggs.
1,
2, 3. Beat the hell out of LSU. Hey, woo!
Old Army does it twice.
Old Army does it
Pass it
twice.
back,
Pass
Eggs.
it back, Eggs.
Hump it, Eggs.
Hump it, Eggs.
1,
2, 3. Beat the hell out of LSU. Hey, woo!
All right, howdy. So I don't know if we still have time to open it up for questions and answers, but I want to thank y'all so much for letting us come teach y'all some of the traditions of the yell leaders and how we got started, as well as some yells. So I guess if we have time for questions, we can open it up. But if not, we want to thank y'all so much for letting us join y'all today.
Yeah, we can open it up for a couple of questions, just one or two. Does anybody have any questions?
You ask questions about A&M, questions about us and what our role is on campus, and we can kind of explain a little bit more. So,
someone asked, do you guys happen to know why are all yell leaders males, and how many yell leaders are there?
So originally Texas A&M, we got started back in 1907, and so there's 5 yell leaders, and anyone can be elected to be a yell leader. It's just there's never been a female. So it's not that it's an all male position, but currently we're the 5 that got elected. So it's a student body elected position, and anyone can run. So it's just whenever the first female runs and gets enough votes to be a yell leader, then that's what will happen. So, but yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Great, and I think we're gonna just wrap it up on this last question, which is how many events do you attend in 1 year, do you think?
Yeah, so how many events we attend in a year? We do over 300 calendar events in a normal year. Now, COVID-19 has been very different because a lot of our in-person events have been canceled. Usually we'll do a bunch of events during the summertime, like over 150 during the summer. But since kind of everything was put on lockdown, we've only been able to do like Zoom calls like this. So y'all are one of the few groups that have gotten a Zoom call this year. It's kind of a new thing for us and working out all the kinks, but we usually do about 300 events a year. It keeps us pretty busy.
Yeah, I bet. Oh, well, thank you guys so much. This was a really entertaining and informative presentation. Just another thank you to the yell leaders.
Well, yeah, thanks for having us out. We appreciate it. Thanks. Gig'em. We'll see y'all.
So now that we have had all of our speakers give a presentation, I do want to pass it off to our another special events officer for ISA, Veronica Rango, and she's going to handle all of the Kahoot and raffle activities. So Veronica.
Thank you for the introduction. Howdy, my name is Veronica Rangel. I am a member of the Special Events Committee for ISA, and I will be your host today for the Kahoot Football 101 game. So let me share my screen. I don't know why. There we go.
Hello? Huh?
So if you guys don't know how to play, simply go to www.kahoot.it and enter the game pin 4452773. Please make sure to put your name so we can identify you as a winner. Is that good for sound? Just a couple more minutes. As we wait for everyone else to join, I would like to announce the prizes. So the first prize is a football or $3 to $25 Aggie Outfitter gift cards, an extra large TAMU shirt, white A&M tumbler, and stainless steel water ball, or tickets to the LSU and Ole Miss game. Type them on here. Okay, so we'll start right now. So what is another name the Aggie Band is known for? Correct, it is Noblemen of Kyle. 7 of you got that right. So Nolan is in the lead, runner-up Tanya, and third place Amanda, then Stella and Callie. True or false, Yale leaders are a team of upperclassmen with 2 seniors and 3 juniors. False. It is 3 seniors and 2 juniors. Tanya has moved up to first place. What phrase is used to describe anything that embraces or promotes the Aggie spirit or the traditions of Texas A&M? Correct, it is good bull. Tanya is still in the lead. Amanda has gone up to runner-up. When was the first Midnight Yell held? So the first ritual was 1913, but it was first held 1931. Tanya is in first place, Rubab in second place, third place Alwan. What graduating class funded the statue of Gil known as the 12th man statue? That is correct. It was the graduating class of 1980. Tanya is still first place. When did the Maroon Out organization announce to expand the Maroon Out tradition from one game to a full football season? It was 2019. Tanya is still first place, Rubab second place, and Bryn third place. What was the outcome of the game which started the tradition of the 12th man? It was 22-14. That was in the presentation. Tanya is in first place, Rubab second place, Bryn in third place. What was the original location of the Midnight Yell? That is correct, the YMCA building, now held in the cow field. Tanya is in first place, Rubab second, third, Bryn, and Nolan is back in the game, 3 in a row. The Aggie War hymn penned by J.V. Pinky Wilson was originally called. Goodbye to Texas University, our rivalry. Rubab has claimed first place, Tanya's runner-up. When was the Aggie song, The Spirit of Aggieland, performed for the first time? That is correct. It was performed 1925 Midnight Yell. Tanya has claimed first place. When was the tradition of elephant walk started? (1922), and that was class of 1926. Skylar has moved up to fourth place. Tanya still in the lead. How many stripes are in the shield of the Aggie ring? There are 13 stripes to symbolize the 13 original states and to show an Aggie's patriotism. That is correct. Skylar has moved up to third place. Tanya is still in the lead and Rubab as runner-up. Who wrote the original lyrics for The Spirit of Aggieland? It is Marvin Mims. He is the original writer of the poem in 1925. Tanya is still in the lead. Sydney has moved up to third place and Rubab still runner-up. What is the name of the official mascot of Texas A&M? Reveille, all of you guys got that correct. Tanya's in the lead, Rubab runner-up, and Sydney third place. True or false, the Fighting Texas Aggie Band is the second largest military band in the United States. It is actually the first largest military band in the United States. In third place, Amanda. In second place, Skylar. In first place, Rubab. So those of you who have won, please send me a chat privately, your full names, so we can note you down. Let me start my share. I would like to pass it on to Dua. She will demonstrate or show the prizes and talk about the exit survey. So I'll stop my share.
Congratulations to the winners. I'm going to show you the prizes. So you guys can choose from a hoodie and a beanie. That's like one set. There is a Texas A&M bottle and a tumbler. That's a second set. And there's an A&M football. But along with that, you guys also get like a pair of football tickets. So yeah, just fill in your information in the exit survey that we're going to send right now in the chat. Moreover, for everyone else, you guys have to fill in the exit survey, and then we're going to choose some of y'all. You guys can get a pair of football tickets. But we hope that you guys enjoyed this event. For any of you, if you want to stay until the end, Kerri Vance is willing to stay for longer and talk to you guys about football if any of you guys have any questions. But thank you so much for coming in tonight. We hope that you all learned a thing or two about football and the traditions at A&M. And we all hope that you have a great Thanksgiving break and good luck for your finals. Thank you.
And real quick, you guys do have to fill out the exit survey if you want a chance to win those tickets. It'll be a random drawing, and I put the link in the chat and our website link, so give those both a look. Thanks.
So for those of you who are like still here, if you guys want to go ahead and ask Kerri Vance questions, she's more than willing to talk about them. She's super excited. She loves talking to like international students about football. So you guys can go ahead and ask her any of your questions.
When I was in Germany, I worked at a German university and teaching English. But we always kind of got on the subject of sports, and it was just so fun to talk about this with them as Germans and other Europeans. So love that I'm back home, but also being able to share this with other international students. So you can throw your question in the chat or unmute and ask.
What's been your favorite all-time Aggie football game?
Oh my goodness. So I guess in my memory, when I was a freshman here at A&M, so this is fall of 2002, I was a freshman, I was in the Aggie band, and we played #1 Oklahoma at the time. And I honestly now can't remember if we were ranked, and if we were, it wasn't that high in the rankings. But that game, we actually ended up beating the #1 ranked Oklahoma. And it was wild because it was the first time we had beat a ranked team like that in a long time. And actually this season, when we beat I think we were #4 at the time, Florida, that was the last, the Oklahoma game that I was at, had been the last time we beat a top 5 team at Kyle Field. So it had been 18 years since we had beaten a top 5 team at Kyle Field, this past game with Florida. But yeah, I mean, that was just sort of my first experience as a student in the band, kind of there at the field, seeing A&M beat #1 team. It was so cool, so cool. Did I go to any football games back in Germany? So I guess since we're referencing Germany, do you mean like the soccer games, I guess? I did go to a couple. The town I lived in was a smaller town. It's called Saarbrücken, and they did have a football team, a football club, and but they were, I want to say they were in the 3rd league maybe, so they weren't that great. But actually, what's also kind of cool is that there is an American football league in Germany. They call it the German Football League, but it's for American style football, that some Americans do come over to Germany and play like American style football. So that was actually really interesting to see American football played in Germany. But as far as the soccer games as well, I did go to a few, but I didn't go to like Bayern München or Dortmund or anything like that, which I imagine would have been insane. But I was there for the 2010 and 2014 World Cups, even though World Cup wasn't in Germany those times, but just the atmosphere of how much Europeans love like soccer football. It made me sort of get into it as well. But just those every 4 years, I can kind of get into that. It was really fun. Let's see, going to football games. We also won our first game against Alabama when we joined SEC in Alabama. Yes, that was amazing. And I watched that game live in Germany. I was living in Germany at the time, and I figured out a way to stream football games, Aggie football games. And I would watch them in Germany live. So sometimes I was up at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning watching football games. I love it. And I watched that A&M beat Alabama in Germany live. It was great. Any other questions? You can throw them in the chat or unmute yourself.
I have a question. It's not a football question. It's a question for you.
Oh, okay.
So do you think which one is better, NFL or college football?
That's a good question. I'll have to tell you, just from my perspective, it's college football for me. But I'll tell you why. One, I grew up here in College Station. So all the games I ever used to go to were Aggie games here. And also being a 2nd generation Aggie, I'm just really into it. And because I'm into Aggie football, then that gets me into SEC football, for example. But then, I always look at who's in the top, top 10 or so, and I'll even watch teams in other conferences if they're good. I always root for an underdog. I love an upset. I love it when an unranked team beats a ranked team. Love those games, except if they're beating A&M. I don't like that to happen. But for me, it's college football. I think for folks who grow up in big cities that have NFL teams, they may gravitate more towards the NFL because that kind of drowns out maybe the universities. And also in bigger cities like Houston or Dallas, there are multiple universities. So it's hard for maybe a city to gravitate towards one. So when you grow up in places like Houston or Dallas, you probably tend to like NFL more, going with the Texans or the Cowboys. But it doesn't mean I
Yeah,
don't want, I mean, I watch the Super Bowl every year. Absolutely. Always there. I'm in front of the TV watching Super Bowl. So I do love that.
I mean, I also watch Super Bowl, but that does not mean I love NFL.
That's true. There are some differences. There's different rules actually between college and NFL. And some of those rules I kind of don't like. One of them being overtime rules, for example. So in college overtime, each team gets a possession. Each team gets to possess the ball, score a touchdown, then the next team gets it and then they can score a touchdown, or if the other team blocks it, then that team wins. In NFL overtime, it's kind of whoever flips the coin gets the call first, because the first team to score a touchdown wins and the other team doesn't even get to try. So it's I don't know, I don't like that, because then it's just kind of the luck of the coin flip. Did you
Since you know soccer, it's like golden goal. Whoever scores in extra time wins.
And yeah, some penalties are a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, I'm not that much of a fan of NFL, but I also don't have a team to really root for either. So I do sometimes when games are on Sunday or Monday, if it's a team like the Browns and I know Myles Garrett is playing, I'll watch for Aggie football players or yeah, things like that. I'll watch teams when I know there's an Aggie playing. Yeah, just like Priyansh said, I mostly root for individual players in the NFL rather than a team. Yeah, that's kind of how I am. I root for the Aggies.
I just wanted to leave a compliment. I think I've listened to a lot of like football presentations, but I thought yours was like really well done. I think it did a good job of like kind of touching on all the things, but also explaining things. And I think that was really great.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. The presenter that had presented this before the last few years, his name is Aaron Klein. He doesn't work at A&M anymore, but we used to team up for kind of a football 101 and traditions for exchange students. And so when he contacted me and said that ISA contacted him, but he doesn't really feel right doing it because he doesn't work here anymore, would I want to do it? I said, well, I hope they're okay with like a girl talking about football, because that's not kind of something that would be typical, but I love football. I don't know what to say about it. I think it's just such a fun game. To me, the thing I think I love about it is that each play has a potential for greatness, so once the ball gets on the line of scrimmage, it's like, okay, what kind of magic might happen here? Is it going to be a long pass, 90-yard touchdown, or are they going to break through a run and then just go out for it? There's always some potential for greatness, and that just gets me so excited about it. And it's in the contrast, like with soccer, that's kind of the thing I feel that's missing in soccer, because there's just a lot of kind of kicking back and forth, and it doesn't really get that great until they're finally like near the goal and then someone tries to make an attempt. So to me, there's a lot of like lag time in soccer until it gets to like exciting, and when there's that kind of like fantastic magic goal going to happen. But each play for me in football has this potential to be kind of great, and you're just kind of excited and waiting to see what happens. So that's what gets me excited about it, and I really love the game. So I appreciate the compliment that you found the presentation good. That's true, Saban. Very, very true. Any other questions? How many people? We got 14 people here. And I'm also, again, I'm a lifelong Aggie. I grew up in College Station since I was 2. So if you have any other general questions about A&M Aggie culture, you can kind of see, I have my boots here. Here's an old Aggie band picture. This is a picture of the academic building. That's my degree. And then here is actually a picture from Benjamin Knox, who's a famous Aggie artist. And what year was that? I'm trying to think now. My junior year, which is 2004, 2005. 2004 was a presidential election year. And it was George Bush, the second one, was elected president the second time. And as you know, we have the Bush 41, his presidential library is here at A&M. And so there's strong connections with the Bush family and Texas A&M. And so for the inauguration parade in January of 2005, the Aggie band was invited to march in the inauguration parade. So the whole Aggie band took a trip up to Washington, D.C., and we marched in the parade and marched by the viewing stand for the president and his family. And Bush Sr. was there giving a gig-em, and Laura and President Bush were there giving a gig-em as well as we walked by. So it was very cool. So this Benjamin Knox print here is just kind of, it has the Washington, D.C. Capitol in the background and kind of the Aggie band there in the front that represents that experience. That was very, very fun, very cool. So anyway, love A&M. So any A&M questions or football, happy to answer. Well, that might be it then.
Yeah. Well, if no one else, if Kerri has explained everything. Oh wait, I'm a first generation college student in Aggie. I'm so excited to keep learning about the traditions here in Aggieland. Thank you. Yeah. So
if I can make one more point, if you want to really see kind of like a museum, there's a place called the Sanders Core Center. It's between the core dorms and Kyle Field. Or not Kyle Field necessarily, but core dorms and the coldest building. There's like the University Center garage, and that's the coldest building there. And then you got the core dorms. And right in the middle, there's a small grassy area, but there's a building there called the Sanders Core Center. And if you go there, it's kind of like a museum for Aggie history. And you can go in there. They have a lot of exhibits there's a lot about the Corps, but also about Bonfire, about the Aggie band, about women joining the Corps, silver taps, muster, all of those traditions that Tradition Council talked about. That's kind of a really cool thing. They have, I don't want to say relics or artifacts from former students that relate to those exhibits that are there. It's really kind of a cool place. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the traditions and kind of see a little bit of that history in a museum type of fashion, the Core Center is a cool place to go, and I recommend it. And they're typically open. You can just walk in and walk around. So yeah, thank you.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Ms. Vance. Gender aside, we appreciate you coming here and doing such a great, fantastic job. I couldn't have done it better myself. God knows. And thanks everyone for sticking around.
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you again, Kerri. You did an amazing job. We really appreciate you coming out here and presenting for our event. Thank you once again.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll probably reach out next year again.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to.
All right, I'll go ahead and end it now, okay?
Yeah, okay.